and welcome back to Adobe Live. Happy Monday, and hello everybody. Thank you for joining us so much. Oh, just to put the ukulele aside. Today, we're joined by this wonderful friend, the one and only Joe Allam. Hi, Joe.
Good morning, everyone. How you doing? Happy New Year to everyone.
Yes, Happy New Year, Joe. Haven't seen you
a bit of a break for me. Yeah,
in a while. So thank you, and well, I can't talk today. Let's try it again. Thank you very much for joining us, Joe, and welcome back. Here we go.
Well,
it's that
thanks
easy.
for having me. Yeah, Adobe Live's been a lot of fun this last year. So yeah, happy to kick off the year with something that's very near and dear to my heart, or rather my ears, which is audio.
Oh, great segue. But first, before we jump right into the topic of the day, we have a couple of things to talk about, because first of all, welcome everybody who's joining us in the chat. We have Ferry and Kirsty and Elevation Alla and Oliver and Catherine and Sandrine and Andreas and everybody else who's watching today. Thank you so much for joining us. As always, if you're watching this on YouTube, you can't chat with us over there. You have to come over to behance.net/Adobe Live. That's behance.net/Adobe Live. Join us there, say hi in the chat, and then we can read your questions. And as always, if you have any questions, be sure to type them in the chat, and I will make sure to interrupt Joe at any point in time and rudely ask your question. So just type them right in. It's like, Joe, what did you have for breakfast? What?
I haven't actually eaten it yet. I was saving it. I'm gonna have a nice sort of brunch after this. So,
well, I'm on the firm opinion that breakfast is optional. And I'm getting a call. No, not right now. Thank you very much.
Tell you what, though, breakfast is my favorite meal of the day. It's something that I look forward to every night. Of thinking, oh, what am I going to have tomorrow? Same thing, but that's what gets me up.
Okay, and Tim looks like he could do with a couple of hours of sleep more. Come on. Yes, I stay quite late. I stay up quite late in the night, but yeah, I'm fine. And I was hoping the new ring light would somehow hide the bags, but it doesn't. Anyway, so today's topic is voice and audio processing for vlogs. And what's that all about? What are you going to talk about today, Joe?
Yeah, so we've got quite a few things to talk about. One of the things that's kind of been one of my biggest focuses when making videos for my YouTube channel and various other outlets and things is audio, because as great as the video can be, if your audio is bad, the whole thing is going to fall apart. It's going to rip that viewer straight out from watching that experience. Generally speaking, you can get away with bad video as long as the audio is good, but you can very rarely get away with bad audio. It's just a human nature that our ears are so much more in tune with what we're experiencing than our eyes. I'm not entirely sure why. Maybe it's an instinct thing, but we can tolerate bad video so much more than we can tolerate bad audio. So it's something that I've focused on ever since I started my channel, and I've been always wanting to improve it. And I've even spoken about this on my channel, that I want to do a big sort of video rounding up all sorts of tips and insight into the equipment side of things, as well as the editing side of things. And the trouble is, the more that I've said about wanting to do that, the more that I've continued to learn about things. So it's always an evolving process. And over the last 6 years or so, I feel like I've built up a good knowledge of various things on audio. But I'm still also of the belief that there's still so much more that I want to dive into. And I'm constantly buying new audio equipment. In fact, I've got some cables being delivered today that I'm very excited for. And I've got all sorts of things on the bigger production scale. But when it comes to the vlog and the one-to-one narrative, I feel like I've got a system that works really well for what I'm doing. And hopefully there'll be some tips that you can learn as well.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Well, we will dive into that in just a second. But first of all, I also have to talk about the schedule for this week before I forget, because we do have an amazing schedule, including this stream today, which is the Monday stream, 12 p.m. Audio processing for vlogs. That's what you're watching right now. And on Wednesday, we will have our second masterclass with Tony and Bresa, and they will talk about InDesign. And on Friday, Natalie will be back with Gavin Strange, and they will talk about finding positivity in Gavin's universe, so make sure to tune in for that. But for now, let's finally, after a long intro, almost 5 minutes, if we were on YouTube, we would have...
Friday with Gavin. Gavin is one of the most positive people ever.
How do you know Gavin?
A ball of energy. Not that well. Okay. I've been to one of his talks back in Bristol, like 10 years or so ago. I've followed him on Instagram since the very beginning, pretty much. But he is a ball of energy. That would be a fun one on Friday, I'm sure.
Well, then you have to tune in, I expect you in the chat. Anyway. Right. So, audio and video. Where do we get started?
So the key thing with audio, and this is something that comes from experience that I've seen from other people, their experiences, and I sort of witness on the sidelines when I'm out shooting vlogs in a regular year with other people, and you see people filming things. And so often I see people say, I'll fix that later when it comes to the audio. Or if you're talking or something and they're like, oh, don't worry, I'm just going to put music over this. And the point that I'm making is that so much of audio happens at the time of filming. And it grates on me quite a lot when I may be out filming and there are people that I'm with and they're just talking in the background and my ears just prick up and I can hear them. And I'm like, that's going to be on the video. I always plan to capture audio whenever I can. Of course, sometimes things get covered by music and whatever, but if you have the best recording you can get at the time of filming, you're just going to set yourself up for success later down the line. So my first tip is always just go with the idea that you are going to capture the audio rather than thinking, I'm just going to mute this and cover it with music, because you never know what little tidbit of audio is going to really elevate that scene. And if you only have the one and everything else you've been talking over, it's really going to jar the system or jar the experience if only one of those clips has audio and everything else is muted. So start with a sort of level playing field of everything is going to be recorded well. If it means asking your friends to hush up a little bit whilst you're filming, then you just got to do that. I'm definitely that guy. But it's the sort of main thing really is just being so in tune with what's happening around you, behind you, and everything as you're filming. Secondly, it comes down to the equipment that you're using. So generally speaking, onboard microphones in a camera are not very good. They work well in a pinch, but realistically, you want to get some sort of dedicated microphone. So that could happen to be something as small as this. So this is a little Rode Video Micro. So it just sits onto the hot shoe mount on the camera, and then it's got a audio lead that just plugs in. Everything's all powered by the camera, so there's no battery or anything like that. This is just a very simple microphone. Produces great quality audio and works at a fairly okay distance. And they're super cheap. So this particular one I think is about £50,
oh, wow.
$60 or something like that. There are also various knockoffs from other brands. But generally speaking, I enjoy Rode as a microphone brand. They have good quality at very affordable prices. And that obviously works very well in the video field of things, because things do get very expensive very quickly. Right. So that's like an entry level basic thing. But of course you can then level up into other microphones. So you can go up through, you may have seen something like this. So this is the Video Mic Pro Plus. So a bit of a bigger one. It's got some extra controls on the back. So things like boosting your audio or reducing it down. You can also have safety tracks in here if your audio is too loud, and various other things. And this is battery powered, so you do need to charge this. Although I will say that the battery on this lasts a good amount of time. I've gone weeks, even months without charging it. And it's only when it starts to flash, you're like, oh, I need to remember to plug that in. So that's a slightly bigger setup. And we can also transition across into other types of microphones. So we've got a shotgun mic here. This is, again, the Rode NTG4 Plus. Different type of connector. So this one is XLR, which is kind of one of the oldest running connectors in the world. I believe it's been going for about 70 years or so, which is hilarious, I think.
It's still going strong.
It's a solid connection, and I don't see it changing anytime soon. This is, again, for more like professional applications, and it's very directional as a microphone. So we'll talk a bit about what these microphones do and where you'll use them in a moment, just running through different types. You can also have things like lavalier microphones. So this is a Sennheiser MKE2, the microphone plugged into the Sennheiser AVX system. So this is a wireless system. You'll have that on your body, tiny little lav mic, and that's great for picking up vocals. And then on your camera,
other brands are available.
Yeah,
like this one.
And you'll plug this into your camera, again, XLR. You can get a little adapter for it. And yeah, all sorts of different mics, and not all mics are suitable for every purpose. So what I'm going to talk about mostly today is audio that's been captured with an on-camera shotgun. So I, for a long time, was using this Video Micro, and I've since upgraded and gone through into the Video Mic Pro Plus, and now my main setup, sorry to keep switching back to all the different product ones, is the latest version of the Video Mic NTG. So this is like a good cross between the shotgun of the larger style. Put a little pop filter on there, or a wind filter if you want, and that plugs straight into the camera, and you've got gain controls on the back for all things, but we'll talk about those in a moment. So, good mic practice.
And the chat is very excited about the new camera angle, by the way. They're saying now hand modeling on Adobe Live.
Very nice. Yeah. I'm wondering if this is the first
it is
hand exclusive for Adobe Live. I'm excited for that.
Yeah, it is. We did have some nails. Someone painted their nails with the different Adobe logos. And this was during our masterclass in the last year, but I don't think we ever had multiple camera shots live.
Ooh, lovely, lovely. I saw there was a comment in there asking if the desk is just as tidy, and today, unfortunately, it's not, because we've got microphones all over the place. But we have fun with the camera angles here. Anyway, so microphones on camera.
Yes.
When it comes to recording audio, there is a key tip that you really need to just hold in your head every time. And that is, the closer you can get to your microphone, the better the audio quality is going to be. And it sounds very simple, but it's so often forgotten. So often I see people, and they've got their camera and they've put a microphone on, and then they've gone and set it on the side. And it could be as far away as this camera is from me, which if I point at it, it's more than an arm's length. So the biggest tip I would say is always bring your microphone as close as you can get it until it's just out of frame. Or if it's a microphone such as this one, which I think looks nice in frame, you can bring it as close as possible. But to give you an example of that, if I bring this as close as I can, I talk into it, hopefully you should be getting a good, clear audio of it. But if I move it further away, it doesn't really sound as good, does it?
No, we should totally do it like this. This is perfect, yeah. Just further away, yeah.
So by bringing that that signal much closer, you will create a better output on the other end. Rather than just turning up the microphone sensitivity, bring it closer.
And for podcasts, this is also really desired as an effect, because you get the proximity effect.
Exactly.
Really close and
yeah.
bassy. But this doesn't really work with shotgun mics, since you can't really get up that close up to them. Is there an ideal distance, or it's just really as close as you can get?
As close as you can get. When it comes to these microphones, so the on-camera shotguns, they have been designed with a pickup pattern that is very directional. So it kind of only collects the sound around this area. Doesn't collect too much from the back, from the sides, and doesn't really pick up much sound from the back either. And they work. I always talk in bananas with this. So they work about a decent length is maybe 3 bananas away from your camera. So if you're vlogging, if you're holding the camera out in front of you, at an arm's length, you're going to get good quality audio. I just turn the mic sensitivity down in the camera. the mic sensitivity on the microphone itself just up a bit, and you get a nice, clear and crisp audio. And then when we go into Premiere, I have some extra sort of processing and things going on. Yeah, so much, and I can't stress this enough, so much about audio is done at the time of recording. So it's paying attention to your surroundings, making sure that things are quiet, getting as close to your microphone as possible so that that is all that the microphone picks up. The way that I think about it or describe it is, if you imagine a torch, and if you shone a torch into the lens, the closer you bring that torch into the lens, the more that it's going to pick up just the light of the torch. It's the same for audio to a microphone. The closer you are to it, the more that it's going to be overwhelmed by just that noise. As you bring that torch further away, or you bring the microphone further away, it's going to bring with it the rest of the environment, and it's going to bring that noise into your production, which may be what you want. Maybe you want more atmosphere and environment, but generally you should record that separately. So think of it as a torch. The closer you are, the more you can focus in, and you can just nail just that audio. That's all you're capturing, because it's not being distracted by anything else around. And microphones are, they're delicate. They're very technical pieces of equipment. They are designed in a way that they capture only what's around them. So put yourself around that microphone, and you'll get the good results. So I think that's enough about stressing on the physical aspect of it. But I honestly want to stress that all the time, that so much is at the time of shooting. Someone
should have a counter where they counted how many times we said microphone in the stream. I think it would be 25 by now.
Well, it's a good job your name isn't Mike. And
we could do a mic test. Yeah. And they're also
mic,
saying is that EU standard bananas. Very important.
Yes, that does depend on geographically where you're from. More exotic locations, you may get straighter bananas, and or is it bendy bananas? I'm not sure. But
well, I'm glad
choose
that
any fruit of your choosing.
Yeah. Right. Okay. So and they're also saying that your desk is very crowded. Yeah, it's awful.
It is. I'm having to focus in on the camera and not let myself get distracted away and want to tidy up.
That's what they call the zoom angle, right? Just the perfect part of the room where it's perfect, and the rest is just we don't want to talk about it. Anyway, I think mic test, good pun, joke. Yes. Should we go over to Premiere?
Yes, let's open up Premiere.
Here we go.
So I've got a video open here, which just so happens to be the last travel vlog I made, which is coming up to a year ago now. But let's not dwell on that. So this was the video I made for Morocco. So you can find that on my YouTube channel. And this is a good example because it's obviously one of the last travel vlogs I made. So it's at like the sort of optimum level of me understanding what I'm doing with my cameras and microphones to their best ability. But also I've got some indoor shots. So you've got this talking head here at the start, which is kind of where I'm just explaining that the trip got cut short because Europe started going into lockdown, and I had to explain that. So that is all recorded into this, which is the NTG 4 Plus, and that is just out of frame, directly in front of me, below me. You can mount these above you or below them, and it's pointed just at my sort of chin and bottom lip, I guess, just in the vocal area. So I've already processed this audio and published it. I could go back and improve on it again, but let me show you how I did that. So if we go to my very first sequence, as I laid everything out, I believe, maybe it's this one. Let's close down that. No, actually, I remember I recorded this intro multiple times because I just couldn't get it right. Where did I do it?
And just so you know, for viewers at home, the audio might not be that perfect on the stream because, I mean, we're still broadcasting this on the internet, and also some compression from Joe's end to my end to the end on YouTube. So the sound might not be as pristine as it originally was when Joe recorded it.
That is a very good, very good point.
We do have some limiting and audio processing, so everything is loud enough for you. So it might sound a bit different.
Yeah. So that's a good point, actually. That reminds me to talk more on the principle of things rather than actually what you're going to hear. Likewise, when it comes to editing, I very rarely edit with these headphones. I actually use a different set of headphones which have a flatter response to them, and they have a particular characteristic to them, which is great for listening to music, and they're sort of more along the, I guess, the pop line of what type of music you'd be playing. Mm-hmm. But for editing, I actually use a very separate set of headphones, but they're not very good for recording audio because the audio leaks out of the headphones because they're an open back system. So if I did that, you'd be getting all sorts of feedback, and that's not going to work. But we can make do with these headphones. So if I just show you here. So I've got this clip that was recorded from the camera, and then I've got my audio, and you'll see that my audio is named as voiceover. That's because what I've actually done, if I double click into this is a nested clip. And this is a great tip that I have when it comes to editing audio. If we just close that down, we don't need to see these two. So when you record audio separately in a long take such as this, which was about 20 minutes of recording, and it was made up of 3 audio files and 3 video files, I quite often just want to get straight into editing the whole narrative down. I want to trim it and chop it down before I go through and process the audio, before I have to make all of my tweaks to the EQ and other things. So what I'll do is I'll nest the whole audio as a single track. And then when I go into my timeline, I can link that up, and then any cuts that I make, I can just go ahead and cut the narrative. But I can always double click back to my voiceover and get to the raw original files. And then from here, if I want to do my edits in Audition, for example, I can edit in Audition, or I can make my tweaks. That way, I'm only making my tweaks on these 3 individual files rather than in my timeline, which has multiple cuts now. So rather than having to repeat my edits over multiple cuts, I just find that's a good little time saver. So nesting your audio, which is as simple as selecting the clips that you want, right-clicking and going to nest. And it just groups it together into almost like a sequence within a sequence. That's maybe the best way to think of it.
And just one thing, editing in Audition is you don't have to render it out first. It's dynamic link streaming, so you can just edit in Audition without the need to render out the project before you can edit it. So that's nice.
Yeah. And yeah, it's a great sort of round tripping process. Works really well. So if we go to my finished vlog, so you can see I made many cuts across all of these, and the audio has been edited separately in Audition. So if we go back to that original voiceover, and let's have a listen to the original. So let's mute that. Okay, so here is how the original sounded. Morocco multiple times, and now back in London. So you can see that there's not really much character to the audio. It's there's a lot of room noise to it, and it just sounds a bit flat. But if we select our clip and go to edit in Audition, this is where we will start to do some of the audio processing. And that's just going to open up. And there's a few things that I'd want to do in this particular type of clip. And bearing in mind, this is for like a sit down, more of a talking head. We'll get into the sort of vlogging out and about in a moment. Mm-hmm. So in Audition, if this is your first time seeing it, don't be intimidated. There's a lot going on here. But the way that what we're looking at here is we've got our timeline across the top with our left and right channels. This is a mono signal, so they're actually both the same. And you can see the bits where I'm not really talking much, bits where I'm clearly talking. And then this down here is a visual representation of of that audio. So for example, we don't have any in here, but if there was say a car alarm was going off in the background, you may see a particular frequency with a very distinguished line across it, maybe like a beep, 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 and you'll see that on there. And within this view, you can actually do things like a healing brush, similar to Photoshop, and you can actually just select your audio by visual representation and cut it out. So you can see clearly areas of I'm talking, and there's like a bit of room noise and sort of background hum at the bottom. But you don't need to worry too much about that. That comes from experience of looking at it. But the very first thing I'll do is I'll open this clip and I'll zoom in to an area that's particularly quiet. And I don't think I did it on this clip, but normally I'll just let it run for about 20-30 seconds with no speaking at all. So you can capture the room noise. So I've got this area here, and if I just play that, it should be quiet, but you'll hear, unless our compression is cutting it off, there's just a bit of a hum, and it's the sound of my Mac in the background and other things that were in the room that just make a noise that the microphone picks up. So first thing I'll do is I'll select that, and I'll do Shift P, or go to your effects, and I think it's in noise reduction restoration, capture noise print. So that captures the noise print, and it tells Audition that remember that sound, hold on to that a minute, and then go to effects again and go to noise reduction. So it's saying to Audition, remember that sound? Right, now try and remove it from the whole file. So we've captured our noise print, and it's detected it, and it's got a noise floor, and we can adjust what we're affecting and working within. Don't worry too much about this for now. This is kind of where you want to look, and that's mainly your noise reduction, so how much you want this to be working, and then your reduce by, which is in decibels. So what we're going to be doing is just playing through it, and I can play, let's zoom out to a bit where I'm talking. So that's me talking. If I do output noise only, we'll see the bits that it's found that it's going to be removing.
I don't think the Audition sound is coming through. Premiere was, but Audition doesn't.
Oh, it's not. Ah, okay.
So that might be the reason why. And also, briefly, why you can you change that on the fly? I think it's the audio devices in Audition you have to change.
Interesting. It's got share computer sound.
Yes, but in Audition, I think it doesn't use the audio device. And in the meantime, if you are too scared of using the noise reduction filter, there's always the what's it called? The essential sound panel, which has some easy sliders if you're just getting into audio editing and you can't be bothered tweaking all the sliders, or just if you don't know about them. Well, that's one way.
Okay, so hopefully this will work now.
Let's try it again.
No, that doesn't appear to be coming through for me. Okay, I will skip past this.
Very interesting.
Yeah.
Okay, right. The last one should be the last one.
What was the last one? Zoom.
Yeah.
Nice. I'm not sure if I'll be able to hear that then.
It should
that was what I just
send it through to your device.
No.
Okay.
Well, okay, never mind. Well, this works very much on visual principles. So what we're doing with this noise reduction is we're just saying, remember that sound that we captured where we highlighted just a small area? Now let's process it through here. And this depends file for file of how much you want to reduce. So I'm saying work at around 70%. And for all of that area that you detected that similar sound, reduce it by 16 decibels. And we can then select the entire file, hit apply, and that will go through, and all of those quieter areas then just become so much quieter and crisper. And it's cleaned up the audio, and that in itself does a huge amount. So when we save this and go back to Premiere, that has just cleaned up and given us a good base. We can also do our effects rack in here, so we can add in things like EQ and other stuff. But I'm going to actually do that in Premiere, because I don't want to spend too much time in Audition, because I feel like that's a bit overwhelming for people.
What?
But that noise print is a great place just to start. And by saving, going back to Premiere, it's automatically saved and replaced that audio, and we can work with it directly back in Premiere. It's brilliant. So let's go back to our Morocco video. So now this audio, and hopefully create somewhat of a distraction to that's now got that cleaner audio, and we can start to work on it. So this next tip I think is huge and is great for both vlogging and sitting down, and that is using the audio track mixer. So a lot of people, when they come to edit their audio, they maybe select their clips and they'll go into their effects window and they'll search through audio effects and they'll find filter and EQ, and they'll do the graphic EQ 10 bands and they'll drag it over onto that one. And then they'll go into their effect controls and they'll then go into the EQ, edit those, and they'll make all these adjustments. This is maybe a familiar view for some people. And then they'll make their tweaks and then they'll copy that and then they'll go into the next clip and then they'll paste it on, and then they'll go to the next clip and paste it on. That's boring. I don't want to do that. That's going to take far too long. So instead of using your effects in here, I'm going to introduce you to the audio track mixer. So if you go to Window and audio track mixer, I've just got multiple sequences open, but I can just choose the one that I'm looking at. We can see, if I increase this, we can see each of my audio tracks. So in this sequence, I've got 5 audio tracks. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And we've got 5 track mixes here, and then a master one for the whole video file. So from in here, I can layer up various different effects, and that then applies to everything on that audio track. And that's huge. It's a massive time saver, because if you are clean and organized in your sequence setup, then you'll put all of your vocals on the same track and all of your B-roll on separate tracks and other things. And it just helps keep everything tidy and organized. And we love that around here.
That sounds like you.
So in our audio track mixer, I generally only ever do 2 different processes for my vlogs, and that is a graphic EQ and a hard limiter. So the graphic EQ, if we double click that, you can see what I apply here. And think of this as like a bit of a wave. And what this is doing is it's telling the audio to increase or decrease certain frequencies in the response. So from the very left, we've got all the bassy sounds. So this is anything that's like deep and bassy in the low parts of your voice. Most human voice starts around 100 to 500, I guess. A lot of the...
Mine doesn't. It's much cheaper. That's also the reason why I have to have some soundproofing in this room, because low frequencies are just bouncing back and forth walls, and that's fun.
Goes through to neighbors so quickly, doesn't it? So yeah, male voices in particular start a little bit lower, and then you have your mid-range, which in the vocal range doesn't really carry an awful lot, and then the sort of higher peaks between 1000 and 4000 hertz is where you get that crispness in your audio. So again, this is different for everyone's ears and everyone's voices, but on a general scale, I will increase a little bit of the bassiness. So you can see this is at 1.6, 1.2, and I'll also increase some of the sort of higher tones just to add that crispness. So if we play through, and I'll turn it off, happened on the Morocco trip and how it came about, and hopefully create somewhat of a distraction. So that's how it sounds without it on, and then this is with it on. Happened on the Morocco trip and how it came about, and hopefully create somewhat of a distraction to what is currently going on in the world with the virus. From the very beginning, 2 years ago in 20... I don't know if you can tell that on Zoom. I don't know if that's coming across.
Yeah.
Yep.
Any reason for going with the 10-band graphic EQ instead of like the parametric EQ or anything else? It's just preference. Do they work better? There's
a bit of a speed improvement I find for myself. Using a 10-band or even a 15-band, I'd never really go as high as the 30-band. Sorry, actually it's a 20-band in Premiere.
Have you tried the parametric EQ?
Yes, so I've used that a lot. Originally, actually, I used that a lot. and I would use it if you had room echo and you can really highlight particular frequencies. But I think if you're making vlogs, you generally wanting to produce them at a particular speed of production, so you're going to have to match up efficiency with quality on things.
Right.
And the 10 band, I find, because it's got those set parameters, it's just a great place to start with. For those who are wondering what a parametric EQ looks like, it's a little bit more customizable. So you would have your 5 points across here, and you can quite literally drag and increase certain frequencies and tighten that up, or have it affect wider or smaller areas across the board. And they work great for removing echo in a room. So you can really find those frequencies that are just harsh to listen to, and you can dip those down. But yeah, I'd quite like a 10 band EQ, and I'll edit it in a way that I'll start pulling up the highlight areas first until you get that crispness, just where you can really just hear it, just having that crispness in the top part of your voice. And then I'll bring up some of the low areas, and I could even drop down and have a low pass at the very front end of it, because we don't need those deep bassy hum of a room, for example.
Yeah, do you ever use a low cut? I mean, some microphones already have a low cut filter implemented hardware-wise.
Yeah, so some of these, yeah, they've got a low cut built in.
Low cut, no pass.
Got
a low pass filter shows all the rumble. Yes.
They've also got a high pass filter, which is great if you put them into something like a wind filter, because that does just kind of muffle it ever so slightly, and you put high pass on, it just retains that crispness, or rather it heightens the audio. So yeah, EQ, again, I have to kind of talk principle on this, because I don't think it's gonna come through, and also each video is going to be different, so judging on what I'm playing here may not be the best thing. Don't try and copy the settings exactly. It's more a case of just playing and tweaking with those things, and you'll see where you've pushed things a little bit too high and where you haven't. And then likewise, it's always good practice to go and listen to your exported video on a multitude of devices, headphones, speakers, smartphones, TVs, because each device will play things differently, and they'll have their own sort of sound signature. And you want to find a good balance between all of them, really. But EQ is a great place to add your sort of signature and give a little bit of life into your audio, a bit like color grading your video. Straight out of camera, it obviously works, but as you add contrast and as you add highlights and shadows to things, you just really start to bring that picture to life. EQ, I'd say, is the same thing for bringing that audio to life. Okay, so enough of this sit down. Let's go to something that's a little bit more vloggy, on the move. So we got some clip here.
Kind of makes people think like, broadcast, something special, national.
So that is obviously a very noisy market, talking to camera. And again, that proximity to the microphone allows me to still hear that audio decent enough. It's just one of the benefits of using a on-camera mic. A on-camera shotgun rather than the built-in mic. If that was built-in, I'm sure all we would be hearing is just everything around.
Because those are omnidirectional usually, so they pick up everything all around.
Yeah. So this is where the audio track mixer comes in, because when we're vlogging, the scenario is changing all the time. So we've got a clip here in a market, a little bit later in a restaurant, a little bit later we're on a mountain, and then we're in a very quiet residential. And so you could, if you wanted to go and tweak every single clip and make adjustments all the way through, but you're definitely not going to be publishing frequently. It's going to take you a long time going through that. So audio track mixer is a good sort of halfway point where you can do a baseline for the whole track. In my case, I've gotten to know my microphone well enough that I can have almost the same settings throughout. So if we listen to this, for example, this is a very quiet area.
raw, natural beauty. And then, of course, on the way.
And so I'm able to just focus on the voice in that one. So I've got my EQ, which I actually adjusted a little too bassy on that one, just before anyone starts pointing fingers at this. Yeah, it just works across. So audio track mixer, great place to start. One thing that I added about a year and a half, maybe 2 years ago now, is a hard limiter. And the day that I did that, when I published a video, one of my good friends, Henry, he's like a wizard in audio. He messaged me immediately. He was like, "What did you do to the audio?" He's like, "It sounds brilliant." I was like, "Oh, you noticed." And the hard limiter has been a little secret of mine for vlogs. It's a very simple thing. All that does is it tells Premiere. It's a very simple thing, really. It just says, don't ever push your audio above a certain thing. So as long as it's within the remit of what was captured, you can say your maximum amplitude, in this case, is -1 dB. So that means that no matter how loud I set the microphone, it's never going to output in the final export greater than -1 dB. So it's not going to blow the speakers or anything. Of course, if you recorded it and you clipped the audio at the time of filming and you ruined it, then it's not going to help you. But if it was captured well, having this -1 just helps keep things just below that very top area of your audio thing.
However, if you use it, be very careful with the input boost slider. Don't crank it up too much, because otherwise your audio will just sound flat. And
Yes.
That was one thing which I had to learn when doing the Adobe Livestream first, because I boosted the input signal really loud and it sounded great, at least I thought so, until I listened to it on a different device, like an iPhone, an iPad, and just sounded awful. So
Yeah.
now we're not doing that anymore. We're using a softer limiter now.
Yes, so I've got an input boost. I generally only ever work between 1 and 3 dB. In this case, I'm 1.5, and I find that's enough to boost all of the audio on that track. So it's like it's saying, lift all of this audio, give it a little bit more life, but don't go too high. So it says, like, come up to here, but then this is your ceiling, and it sort of just raises everything up, and it just transformed the videos. I just found so much more clarity, quite simply, with a hard limiter. And granted, it's a very subtle one, but it had a big noticeable difference. And since then, I found that when I look back over my older videos that I know that I wasn't using a hard limiter, I can really tell. So hard limiter, definitely a great thing. And of course, going back into our audio track mixer, we can apply different effects for the different tracks. But I only ever use full track effects for anything that's got vocals on, really. And then for our master thing, we use a loudness radar. That's maybe going a little bit too in depth on things, but this is effectively saying, when you export your video, what standard do you want it to reach? What is the classification of loudness? So YouTube, if you are going to do this, is -13 or -14 possibly, LUFS or LKFS. Yeah, we won't go too much into that. That's going a little bit too far. So those are a lot of the processes that I run over the thing, over the whole production. And I've talked a lot about dB and just levels of things. One thing to keep in mind as you're going through your whole timeline is your audio level. So I have mine very prominently alongside. So as I'm playing,
Raw, natural beauty.
you can see you've got the audio levels coming up here. And this is how loud your audio is. I can't stress enough how frustrating it is as a viewer if you're watching things and from clip to clip it's changing in volume. You've got music that comes in that's way too loud. You've got spoken parts that are really quiet. You've got background music that's creeping up too much. So having your audio levels throughout your timeline as you're playing. Allows you to keep a good eye on it. General rule of thumb, when you've got spoken word, you want it to be kind of around, I like to keep mine for YouTube anyway, between about -4 and -9 as like an average point for where that audio is going to be hitting. Music is usually mastered as close to maximum as possible, so I'll always dip that down and make sure that it's just not coming in too loud. Because if you think of this 0 point here, this is where you're telling the file, or rather you're telling your speakers, whether that's earphones, headphones, or speakers on a TV, if it's at 0, you're saying, play it as loud as you can. Just maximize, just blow everything out. So this is about loudness rather than the volume of that speaker. It's in the file. It's go as loud as you can. And we don't want to do that. We want to be able to control it. So we always need to keep an eye on this and make adjustments to things.
And just so you have a feeling for how loud this really is, this stream is mastered to -3 dBs. So that's how loud -3 is. So a bit louder than that, that's -1. And the second thing is the Essential Sound panel can also help you there if you want to match loudness, because you can select all audio clips and there's a button for that that automatically matches it to -24 LUFS, I believe.
Yes,
so
yes.
That might help you.
So I realize I've probably jumped ahead on some of the more advanced stuff, but some of the basic things that you can do to adjust things. So in your audio tracks down here, you've got what's known as the rubber band, which is this little line along here. And if you right click on the effects icon, you can make sure that you're adjusting the level, because sometimes it could be the balance between left and right channel, but by default it's your audio. So if we zoom in onto here, let's just make this a bit larger. So this little, what's called the rubber band, you can drag up and down, and you see that it's just dipping that down by however many dB. Or a keyboard shortcut is use the square brackets. Just tap those to go up and down, or shift and tap to go up and down by 6 dB. So as you're playing things, so for example, this clip,
because you get to see it in its, I guess, raw.
I can see it's hitting around the point that I want. But if I wanted to, I could just drop that 2 dB.
Natural beauty.
Just to maintain that quietness and keep it around there. Likewise, you may have already noticed on my layer, I've got a global volume for that track already set. So for main audio, I dip it down by -2. And for anything that I've got in background music, I always set the whole track to -4. That just saves so much time, because when you drop in music, instead of it just blaring out as loud as possible, you've got a default -4, which just brings it back down, because music is so often mastered as close to 0 as possible. And that just means it's really loud. When you come to watch it and you get to a section that's got music, it's just going to kick in so loud, such as over here. So as we start to play, let's jump there. Halfway through. So you see, it's just keeping it at that -4, and the music is mastered all the way to that point. So keeping it at -4 just keeps it in balance with any sort of vocals that you've got. And you can see that I've also added points in my rubber band where it just manually fades in. It's using the pen tool. And the way that we do that is either by holding Command and clicking, or tapping P on the keyboard. And you can select points. You can drag those up and down. So you can customize where your volume hits. But again, these are all consequential of what it is you're working with. I generally want to speak on an overall capacity of how you would go through a whole file rather than individual, because consistency is a good thing. On a similar note, as you would maybe set points on your rubber band, one thing that I find is so much easier and more efficient for editing audio such as this. So we've got music playing in the background.
That they love Morocco, and that guy clearly said it from the start.
So that's running in the background, but it then comes back into the sequence. What a lot of people may do is they would use the rubber band and they would create keyframes and they would drop and raise their audio using the same file. What I find is a lot easier is to quite simply just make a cut where you want. So using the razor blade tool and then dipping the audio down. So I can just use the keyboard here. So I'm just using shift and left square bracket and then add a crossfade between those. So default 1, shift and D. And this way, I can time that position of where the beat drops, for example, where the clip starts. That is also where the audio changes. It goes either up or down, depending on what I've done here. And using the ripple edit tool, I can move it. So I can move that position so much easier than selecting multiple points. I can keep it consistent because I know that I've always done, say, minus 18 dB. And I just find that is a much easier way of changing the volume in your clips. But, you know, it comes down to how you want to edit, really. I just find that that's a great sort of way to work with things. I feel like I've just run through. There's so much stuff here.
So much information, yes.
I'm just very conscious that in an hour, there's a lot that I'd want to talk about and share on a level that's so much deeper than just, you know, set your volume to this, set that to that. And hopefully there's some insight in there. I'm just going to double check my notes because I've got a few other things that could also be worthwhile having.
But if you had to condense it down into 3 handy little tips so far, I would say first things first, get an external microphone, watch out for the mic placement, and have an eye on for the loudness. And then you can tweak it from there.
Yep, couldn't have said it better myself.
Awesome.
This window here, the audio levels or the audio meters, just make sure it's in every workspace that you've set up. To see that between all my different workspaces, whether I'm doing like coloring or if I'm on, you know, even my vertical video workspace, I've always got my audio meters somewhere because it's just so important. It rips you right out of the video. If you've got bad audio, it just takes you straight away from it all. So yeah, no matter what, I've always got my audio meters visible somewhere. And a lot of the time I set them quite large just because it keeps that sort of like viewpoint of, stays on your mind pretty much.
And oh my goodness, we haven't talked about one thing, audio synchronization. How do you make sure the audio is synchronized to the picture? Especially if you're using like an external audio recorder and you're not recording it on the camera. How do you do that?
I have a very, very simple tip for this. So I've done this ever since the start of my YouTube channel, and it became almost like a signature of sit-downs. I do this triple clap. So the reason that I do a triple clap rather than a single clap is because it's so visible on the waveform. So the idea being that if you've got the camera running and you've got the audio running, do a clap and you can visually sync up where your hands hit, but also where it hits on your ears. So if I zoom in here on my waveform, that triple clap is so visually easy to see. And as I've recorded, I can then, if I want to choose just the audio, I can move that. So obviously that's well out of sync, or position it up. And you just want to move that audio to the point of where the clap hits. I can see it's right there. Next frame. And doing a triple clap, again, just gives you that extra confirmation that you have synced it up because you've got those 3 points that fit. And it's just so visible on the timeline. And it, just became a bit of a signature to the channel. And as a little bit of an inside info, that is also how I set the timing to my logo screen. So this comes out as a triple clap. So the 3 things there, It's like a
Nice. And if you have on-camera audio extra to the external recording, maybe if you're using a external recorder, then you can use Premiere to sync it up automatically, because usually the camera audio should be in sync, but of course your external recording isn't, and there should be. I haven't done it yet because I have never used an external recorder, but there should be an option for you to sync up when the audio clips.
Yes. So in this particular case, because I did do it separately, so one was only doing video, and I don't think I had a scratch audio. But imagine if these were, so say I had so imagine this one is from, I should have set that to there. So imagine this one is linked with the video, and that is the new recording. I could highlight all of them, right click and go synchronize, and then you can just choose the audio. If you've got timecode synchronized between all your devices, then brilliant. You can choose that and it'll just do it automatically. But just do audio mix down, and what it will do is it will then pull it together. So if I just fake this by moving that like this, synchronize audio, it will then move your tracks into a position, and the audio is then synchronized. You see it move across. But because they are actually the same file, it's not quite
Premiere's
working
like, what
exactly.
are you doing? They're the same.
but it did move it across, and
Okay.
it works. I'd say 95% of the time. Sometimes if your audio is just very busy, there's a lot of things happening, it can struggle a bit to really find those key moments, which is why it's still good to do a clap. You'll see it in actual film sets. They use a clapper board. That's what that's for. But I haven't got time to carry a clapper board around with me on my travels, so the clap works well.
Awesome. And of course, there are other tools for you to sync up audio, external ones, paid ones, free ones. So, yeah.
Yeah, all sorts of devices and whatnot to run through. I mean, there's a whole host of things that you can do. So if we've got a bit of time, I wonder if I can quickly show you.
Of course we do.
So video I'm currently working on, which I've been working on for longer than I want to admit. It's a very simple video, but it's just long. It's got two audio sources. So both Ellie and I are doing some commentary on a video, and we're using two separate mics. We actually used these mics. It's a big old dynamic mic. So you get that good sort of radio voice. But I have to dip the levels between when I'm speaking and when Ellie's speaking. And so what I've done is I've just got the audio for me on one track and the audio for Ellie on another track. And I just cut between them. And if there's a moment where, say, Ellie's speaking or where I'm speaking, and these are all linked, the audio processed, and I can just make a cut, and I can select just the audio by holding Option, selecting, dragging a box over it. And if I do Command-Shift-E, that enables or disables. It's a toggle switch, and it will switch between either me talking or Ellie talking. So now that's gone onto Ellie's layer.
The airport, pretty much.
You can see actually it is me talking, so the audio is not picked up right. But it also gives you a good representation, so you can see throughout this whole piece, I've got a lot of me talking and then a lot of Ellie talking, and you can see where you chop and change between who's talking. And I found that to be the most efficient way of going through and editing this type of piece. But yeah, there's so much to audio. And
you always have this transition in between enabling and disabling the clips, so you don't get a click or pop.
Yeah, so in this case, it's actually not too noticeable because it was in the same room. But yeah, I do put a standard transition, which if you go into your preferences, media, I think, or is it timeline? Yeah, timeline, you can set a audio transition default duration. I've just set mine to 6 frames. So it's about quarter of a second, I guess. But you could change it to larger. And then when you do that default transition, that's what it applies. So in this case, that is only 6 frames, but you can, of course, always double click it and change it to something else, or drag and drop it and do whatever. But yeah, I appreciate that was potentially a whole host of information thrown at you that you may have to digest. So I'm sorry if that was all over the place, but there's just so much to audio that I always want to share and talk about, because I do believe it is the one thing that goes so unnoticed to a lot of people. They focus so much on the cameras they buy, and even then they focus on the cameras, not necessarily the lenses. And there's so much that happens in a video that people think is visual, when in actual fact it's audio that holds it together. That's what bridges the narrative.
And that's always the point. If you do it well, people don't notice. But as soon as you screw up just slightly, people are like, what's wrong with this? Something is off.
Yeah, it's like an unsung sort of wonder of it. If you
it's like visual effects. If they're done great, nobody notices.
All this effort in. Yeah, definitely.
And just for people to go like, huh, okay. Oh man, all right. Well, anyway, I think that's about the time for us to say our goodbyes. Or do you have anything else you wanted to share? Any last words?
Yeah, I guess I've covered an awful lot here on audio. But I will hop into the Discord if people have got follow-up questions and whatever.
And of course, the replay is always available, so you can just rewatch it. And to sum it up, perhaps mic placement. No. First, get an external microphone. Place it well, so just out of shot, or if you're having a podcast microphone, just as close as possible. Then go into your favorite editing application. Make sure to match loudness. What else? EQ, right? Remove rumble. Add some clarity to the voice. And then anything else really important? Sync it up to your video.
Just pay attention to your ears. When it comes to editing, just take note of what you're actually listening to. And if you find yourself editing and turning your volume up, turning it down, your viewers are going to do the same thing. They're going to watch the video and they're going to turn it up. They're going to turn it down. If the music kicks in loud and you reach for the keyboard, you need to fix it in the edit.
Good point.
Yeah. So get to know your ears. You don't have to have the best ears. A lot of audio technicians I know, they're almost deaf because they've ruined their ears, but it's not about having good quality ears. It's just about knowing your ears. And if you get to know them, you'll understand what I mean as you get to know your ears. It sounds hilarious, but get to know your ears. Take them out on a date and see how it goes.
Right. Okay, so that's all for today. Thank you so much, Joe. Triple clap for Joe in the chat, please. Everybody, come on. And yeah, we do have 2 other streams later this week. Perhaps we can just have a final look at them. So on Wednesday, we will be back with a 90-minute masterclass with Tony and Racer. And on Friday, Gavin and Natalie will be back. And they will talk about finding positivity in Gavin Strange's universe. So make sure to tune in to that. And like Joe said, he's a bunch of fun, a bundle of fun. How did you say it? Gavin is a bundle of joy?
He's a ball of joy.
A ball of
energy.
There we go.
Yeah, he's a great guy.
Awesome. Tony, who said, I don't know. And they're doing the triple clap in the chat. So once again, thank you very much for watching us today. As always, come on over to the Discord if you have any more questions or anything else you want to talk about. The Discord link is below the video, as always. And I think that's it from us for today. So thanks for watching. And Joe, hope to see you again soon, very soon. I think you're with us later this year sometime.
Yeah, I'll be back next week hosting.
Next week already?
I believe so, yeah.
I should know the schedule. But I don't, apparently. Okay, so see you next week. And from all of us over here, have a nice Monday. And, one more thing. One final thing. Streams on the US are on a reduced schedule today because technically it's a global day off for Adobe. So yeah, some streams may not happen today, just so you know. Right, that's it from us. Thank you for watching.
All right.
And see you soon. Bye.
Cheers, Tim. Bye-bye.